Buenos dias, amigos. I'm going to be reading some more stories right now. And in honor of Women's History Month, I got a couple I'd like to read to you. And one is called She Persisted. She Persisted. It's 13 women who changed the world. Sometimes being a girl isn't easy. At some point, someone probably will tell you no, will tell you to be quiet, and may even tell you your dreams are impossible. Don't listen to them. These 13 American women certainly did not take no for an answer. They persisted. Harriet Tubman was born a slave, and her story could have ended there. Instead, she persisted, escaping from slavery and becoming the most famous conductor on the Underground Railroad. She risked her life many times to lead countless slaves to freedom, including her family, friends, and strangers. Every person she led to freedom arrived safely. I should have fought for my liberty as long as my strength lasted. I like these quotes they have for these ladies. Then we got Helen Keller. Once Helen Keller became blind and deaf as a toddler, few people thought she'd be able to learn to read, write, or speak. But she persisted. Helen learned how to do all three and not only became the first person with deaf blindness to graduate from college, but she used her story to help fight for more opportunities for other people with disabilities in the United States and around the world. One can never consent to creep when one feels an impulse to soar. Then there's Clara Lemlich. After her family fled poverty and the threat of violence in the Ukraine for a new home in New York City, Clara Lemlich got a job working at a garment factory. She wrote that the factory's conditions made women into machines, and so she persisted, organizing picket lines and strikes that ultimately helped win better pay, shorter hours, and safer working conditions for thousands of workers, both women and men. I am one of those who suffers from the abuses described here, and I move that we go on a general strike. Nellie Bly. Nellie Bly became a reporter in part because a male writer had said that working women were a monstrosity, and she wanted to prove that women could do anything. At times, putting her safety at risk, she persisted throughout her career in exposing real monstrosities, pretending to be a sweatshop worker and a patient in a mental hospital to show how badly people were being treated. I have never written a word that did not come from my heart, and I never shall. Now, that stint where she went into a mental hospital almost cost her her life. Inspired from an early age by her brother's childhood illnesses, Virginia Apgar was determined to be a doctor long before many girls had such a dream. Even though she qualified to be a surgeon, the male head surgeon at her hospital discouraged her because she was a woman. Nevertheless, she persisted, becoming an anesthesiologist and creating the Apgar score to test a newborn baby's health, which hospitals all over the world still use today. Nobody but nobody is going to stop breathing on me. After Marie Chief's family moved to California, partly to support Maria's dream of becoming a dancer, she was teased by students in school for her Native American heritage, and later was encouraged to change her last name to something that sounded Russian, since many professional dancers at that time were Russian. She persisted, ignoring all the taunting and poor advice, to become the first great American prima ballerina. It never occurred to me to say it hurts to do that. I don't know how those ballerinas can do that, to tell you the truth. As a 15-year-old riding a bus home from school in Montgomery, Alabama, Claudette Colvin was expected to give up her seat to a white woman just because she was African American. In her refusal to get up, she persisted in taking a stand for what's right, helping to inspire Rosa Parks to make the same choice 9 months later, an act many point to as the starting of the modern civil rights movement. I knew then, and I know now that, when it comes to justice, there is no easy way to get it. You can't sugarcoat it. You have to take a stand and say, this is not right. When Ruby Bridges was in kindergarten, many schools across America, particularly in the South, still refused African American students their equal rights to an education. Ruby wouldn't be treated like a second-class student, and she persisted, walking for weeks past angry, hateful protesters to integrate an all-white elementary school in New Orleans. That fateful walk to school began a journey, and we all must work together to continue moving forward. I still think she was one of the bravest little girls I've ever heard of. As the first woman to serve as both a U.S. representative and a U.S. senator, Margaret Chase Smith could have let that fact alone be her legacy. Instead, she persisted in championing women's rights and more opportunities for women in the military, standing up for free speech and supporting space exploration. The head of NASA once noted that we wouldn't have put a man on the moon without Margaret. The right way is not always the popular and easy way. Standing for right when it is unpopular is a true test of moral character. Sally Ride always believed women could succeed in any math or science career, although not everyone agreed. She persisted, and she became the first American woman in space. But that wasn't enough for Sally. She traveled into space once more and then created science and engineering programs, especially for girls, so she could help generations of young women achieve their dreams too, both on Earth and in outer space. Young girls need to see role models in whatever careers they may choose, just so they can picture themselves doing those jobs someday. You can't be what you can't see. That same quote, I think, would go for boys also. You got to see role models for yourself, no matter who you are. When as a kid, Florence Griffin Joyner visited her father in the Mojave Desert, he would urge her to run faster and faster, to run as fast as a jackrabbit. Even when she had to leave college to help support her family, she persisted in her training on the track and then went back to school and got faster and faster. Her unbroken world record in the 100-meter and 200-meter sprints set at the 1988 Summer Olympics means she is still the fastest woman ever. When anyone tells me I can't do anything, I'm just not listening anymore. Here you go. Oprah Winfrey, Winfrey's grandmother, expected Oprah to follow in her footsteps and become a maid. Oprah knew even as a little girl that her dreams would take her somewhere else. She persisted in turning those dreams into her reality and became a media superstar, working in movies, books, magazines, theater, and most of all, television, where the Oprah Winfrey Show remains the highest-rated talk show of all times. The biggest adventure you can ever take is to live the life of your dreams. I like that one. Watching fictional judges on television inspired Sonia Sotomayor to want to be a real-life judge when she grew up. She knew she'd have to speak English as well as she spoke Spanish, study hard in school, and manage her diabetes before she could one day wear a judge's robe with a gavel in hand. She persisted, eventually becoming a Supreme Court justice and the first ever Latina to sit on America's highest court. I have never had to face anything that could overwhelm the native optimism and stubborn perseverance I was blessed with. Whew. So, if anyone ever tells you no, if anyone ever says your voice isn't important or your dreams are too big, remember these women. They persisted, and so should you. I made a big mistake at the beginning of this book. I forgot to say who it was written by and who the illustrator was. So it's written by Chelsea Clinton and illustrated by Alexandra Boiger, if I'm saying that name right. Names are just kind of problematic. So I hope you like that one. I just like that book. It's a good inspirational book. The next one here is called Rosie Revere, Engineer. And it's by, and I took the dust cover off to make it easier, so let's get this. Andrea Beatty and illustrated by David Roberts. Rosie Revere, Engineer. This is based loosely on the inspirational story of Rosie the Riveter. This is a story of Rosie Revere, who dreamed of becoming a great engineer. In Lila Greer's classroom at Blue River Creek, young Rosie sat shyly, not daring to speak. But when no one saw her, she peeked into the trash for treasures to add to her engineer's stash. And late at night, Rosie rolled up her sleeves and built in her hideaway under the eaves. This is a nice way to say she's up in the attic. Alone in her attic, the moon high above, dear Rosie made gadgets and gizmos she loved. And when she grew sleepy, she hid her machines far under the bed where they'd never be seen. When Rosie was young, she had not been so shy. She worked with her hair swooping over one eye and made fine inventions for uncles and aunts, a hot dog dispenser, and helium pants. Oh, get a load of that uncle floating in the air. The uncle she loved most was Zookeeper Fred. She made him a hat to keep the snakes off his head from parts of a fan and some cheddar cheese spray, which everyone knows keeps the pythons away. I don't know if I would trust cheddar cheese spray. And when it was finished, young Rosie was proud, but Fred slapped his knee and he chuckled out loud. He laughed till he wheezed and his eyes filled with tears, all to the horror of Rosie Revere, who stood there embarrassed, perplexed, and dismayed. She looked at the cheese hat and then looked away. I love it, Fred hooted. Oh, truly I do. But Rosie Revere knew that could not be true. She stuck the cheese hat on the back of her shelf, and after that day, kept her dreams to herself. And that's how it went until one autumn day, her oldest relation showed up for a stay. Her great-great-aunt Rose was a true dynamo who'd worked building airplanes a long time ago. She told Rosie tales of the things she had done and the goals she had checked off her list one by one. She gave a sad smile as she looked to the sky. The only thrill left on my list is to fly. But time never lingers as long as it seems. I'll just chalk that one up to an old lady's dreams. That night, as Rosie lay wide-eyed in bed, a daring idea crept into her head. Could she build a gizmo to help her aunt fly? She looked at the cheese hat and said, No, not I. But questions are tricky, and some hold on tight, and this one kept Rosie awake through the night. So when dawn approached and red streaks lit the sky, young Rosie knew just how to make her aunt fly. She worked and she worked till the day was half gone, then hauled her cheesecopter out onto the lawn to give her invention a test, just to see the ridiculous flop it might turn out to be. Strapped into the cockpit, she flipped on the switch. The Helio cheesecopter sputtered and twitched. It floated a moment and whirled round and round, then froze for a heartbeat and crashed to the ground. Oh. Then Rosie heard laughter and turned round to see the old woman laughing and slapping her knee. She laughed till she wheezed and her eyes filled with tears, all to the horror of Rosie Revere, who thought, oh no, never, not ever again will I try to build something to sputter or spin or build with a lever, a switch, or a gear, and never will I be a great engineer. She turned round to leave, but then Great-Great-Aunt Rose grabbed hold of young Rosie and pulled her in close and hugged her and kissed her and started to cry. You did it! Hooray! It's the perfect first try. The great flop is over. It's time for the next. Young Rosie was baffled, embarrassed, perplexed. I failed, said dear Rosie. It just made of trash. Did you see it? The cheese copter crashed. Yes, said her great aunt. It crashed. That is true. But first it did just what it needed to do. Before it crashed, Rosie, before that, it flew. Your brilliant first flop was a raging success. Come on, let's get busy and on to the next. She handed a notebook to Rosie Revere, who smiled at her aunt as it all became clear. Life might have its failures, but this was not it. The only true failure can come if you quit. Whoa, there's a good one. They worked till the sun sneaked away to its bed. Aunt Rosie tied her headscarf around Rosie's head and sent her to sleep with a smile ear to ear, to dream the bold dreams of a great engineer. At Blue River Creek, all the kids in grade 2 built gizmos and gadgets and doohickeys too. With each perfect failure, they all stand and cheer, but not quite as proudly as Rosie Revere. Now that's the end of the story, but you guys decide, did she get her aunt flying? It certainly looks like it, don't it? The end of that story. Now I got one here. This is just a crazy story. It's by Janet Stevens and Susan Stevens Crummell. It is called The Great Fuzz Frenzy. I hope you'll like this. I just love this story. The Great Fuzz Frenzy. Now we're setting it up here. You see this dog. He's got a tennis ball in his mouth. So we're just kind of setting the stage here for this story. And he's looking at all these prairie dogs. And he sticks his nose right down in the hole with the ball in his mouth. And those prairie dogs are kind of looking at him like, what's going on? And then he goes, woof. Violet, where's the ball? See what Violet did? Just when she barked, she dropped that ball. Down it went. Boink, boink, boink. Run for your life. Thump, thump. I got to hold it like this because this gets longer. And watch out below. Rumble, rumble. Help, help, help. This is one of those crazy books. I got to get it back around so I'm going the right way. Plunk. There it sat. Perfectly still. The prairie dogs waited. Perfectly still. They have no idea. Slowly they crept out, inch by inch, dog by dog. What is it? It's a thing. A good thing or a bad thing? Well, it's a round thing. It's a strange thing. It's a scary thing. Well, what should we do? Don't touch it. Shh. Is it alive? Stand back, boomed a voice. You act like gutless groundhogs, afraid of your own shadow. Oh no, it's Big Bark. Big Mouth is more like it. He's the meanest dog around. Hey, I thought he left town. Well, I'm back. growled Big Bark. So out of my way. Let me have a look. Before anyone could move, little Pipsqueak raced past Big Bark, reached out and poked the big round thing. No! The crowd yelled. It's Fuzzy, said Pip. Ooh, the crowd gasped. He's the brave one. A tiny piece of fuzz was caught in Pip's claw. She looked at it, turned it, sniffed it, and then she put it on her head. Hey, look at me. Ah, the crowd sighed. Ah, quit hamming it up, you half-pint hamster, snarled Big Bark. I'm in charge. But those prairie dogs didn't listen. They had to have fuzz. I like it. Yeah, me too. I want some. Do you? Oh, yes. Oh, so do I. Oh, so do we. So do they. Big Bark, move over. Get out of our way. They charged past him and grabbed at the fuzz. The prairie dogs puffed it, or pulled it. They puffed it, they stretched it, and they fluffed it. They tugged it, they twirled it, spiked it, and they swirled it. They fuzzed their ears, their heads, their noses. They fuzzed their feet, their tails, their toeses. Big Bark was beside himself. Listen to me, you ridiculous rodents. Stop this fuzzy foolishness. But those prairie dogs didn't listen. They were busy being hot dogs and silly dogs, corny dogs and frilly dogs, top dogs, funny dogs, super dogs, bunny dogs. You're all nuts, you squirrely fuzz freaks, yelled Big Bark, storming off. News of the fuzz spread from hole to hole, burrow to burrow, town to town. Soon prairie dogs from everywhere were coming to see that fuzz. They came, they saw, they picked. They twisted it, they braided it, they danced and paraded it. It was a fuzz frenzy, a fuzz fiesta, a fuzz fandango. Why, the whole prairie was abuzz about fuzz. They plucked and pruned and pulled and pinched. They pinched and pulled and pruned and picked. That big round thing was fuzzless, naked as a plucked chicken, until the fuzz ran out. Oh! Some prairie dogs got a lot of fuzz. Some got a little. Some got no fuzz at all. And they were mad. Hey, give me that fuzz. But why? Because, well, it's my fuzz. Well, it was. Get that fuzz! Get that fuzz! Pulling, grabbing, swiping, nabbing, poking, jabbing. It was war. War between the fuzzes and the fuzz knots. Their peaceful town was a battleground. It was a fuzz fight, a fuzz feud, a fuzz fiasco. I started this, moaned little Peepsqueak. Peepsqueak. I have to do something. Everyone, stop! Stop fighting! But those prairie dogs, they didn't listen. The battle raged on, friend against friend, cousin against cousin, dog against dog, until no one was left standing. They were pooped, fuzzled out, fast asleep. Hours later, the prairie dogs began to steer. Uh-oh, where's the fuzz? I don't know. Where did it go? Someone has stolen our fuzz, cried Pipsqueak. Who did? He did. She did. You did. I did, barked a voice from above. I stole the fuzz. The prairie dogs froze. Then they raced up the long tunnel, and there stood Big Bark, covered with fuzz from head to tail. I'm king of the fuzz, he snarled. Do you hear me? I'm king of the... Swoop! And the sky went black. What happened? Where's Big Bark? Oh, look! There he was, high above their heads, dangling from the talons of an eagle. No more Big Bark, the crowd cheered. Yay! Don't say yay. He's one of us, yelled Pip. We have to save him. How would you like to be the eagle's lunch? No, the crowd yelled. Big Bark, wiggle free, the prairie dog shouted. Shake loose. Yeah, hurry, we'll catch you. So Big Bark twisted and turned, wormed and squirmed, and at last he was free of the fuzz. Yay, the crowd cheered. Big Bark fell faster and faster. No, the prairie dog scattered. Get back here, yelled Pip. Quick, make a circle. Hold out your paws. So they ran left, then right, then left. Plop. You saved me, Big Bark cried, but I stole your fuzz. Now it's gone forever. Good, said Pipsqueak. Fuzz is trouble, right? Yay, the crowd cheered. Friend hugged friend, cousin hugged cousin, dog hugged dog. We don't need Fuzz, said Pip, but with Eagle around, we do need a watchdog with a big... Bark! Big Bark rose up on his hind legs. Eagle's back! Bark! This is not a test. Bark! All dogs below. Bark! This is another one of those pictures that just keeps going on and on. As they're going down their hole. Ooh. The prairie dogs race down, down, down the long tunnel. Whew, we made it. That was close. 3 cheers for Big Bark, the best watchdog ever. Yip, yip, yay! Yip, yip, yay! Yip, yip, yay! Well, just doing my job, Big Bark smiled. Are we ever getting tangled up with Fuzz again? Cried Pipsqueak. No, the crowd yelled. No more Fuzz! No more Fuzz! And from that day forward, the prairie dogs lived happily and fuzzlessly ever after. Or did they? Oh no. Different tennis ball, same dog. Okay, I think I got time for one more. I'm going to do one more, then I'll have this shut down. It's called Miss Smith's Incredible Storybook by Michael Garland. This is just a neat story. I really love this one. Miss Smith's Incredible Storybook. This is Miss Smith. She's driving to school. It was the first day of school. Zach was waiting for his teacher to arrive. Boring, boring, he thought. Why would this year be any different from the last one? And then the door swung open. Good morning, class. My name is Miss Smith, and I'm your new teacher. Miss Smith seemed very different from Zach's other teachers, but the day went along like every school day Zach could remember, until Miss Smith said, "It's story time." And when she sat at her desk and started to read from the book that she had brought with her, Zach couldn't believe his eyes. The storybook characters came to life, and the classroom was swept up in a swashbuckling pirate's tale. Zach and the rest of his class were right in the middle of the story. He could feel the breeze in his hair and hear the waves pounding on the side of the ship. From then on, Zach couldn't wait to go to school. Every day there was a new story to look forward to. And then when Miss Smith finished reading, all the characters and adventures whooshed back into the book. On Friday, Principal Rittenrotten stood in front of the class instead of Miss Smith. Miss Smith is stuck in traffic, so she has asked me to read to you until she arrives, he announced. Zach wondered what would happen next. Principal Rittenrotten started to read, and Zach grinned when a princess leaped out of the book, followed closely by a fire-breathing dragon and a brave knight on his horse. Principal Rittenrotten was so surprised, all he could do was scream and throw the book up in fright. "I'm going for help," he called over his shoulder as he ran out the door. Could you imagine the principal at your school leaving you guys to your own fate and running out the door? No. Before Zach could think of anything to do, Sue Ann pounced on the storybook, but she didn't finish the dragon story. She started reading another one instead. The princess, the dragon, and the knight did not return to the book, but the three bears and Goldilocks climbed out. Freddie, the class clown, jumped out of his seat and tried to yank the book away. And when Sue Ann let go, he tumbled backward, and the book flew across the room. And the whole class laughed. And Billy caught the book and started reading from a new story. Zach shook his head in amazement when the Mad Hatter, the Cheshire Cat, and Alice popped out to join the others. As the book passed from kid to kid, one character after another flew out of the pages. The classroom was getting very crowded. "Oh, this is trouble," Zach said to himself. The chaos was beginning to spill out into the halls. "Why don't you finish the story?" Zach pleaded. But no one was listening. Miss Smith brought her car to a screeching halt in front of the school. "Uh-oh, there seems to be a little problem," she said to herself as she raced inside. I'm going to hold that there for a minute, let you guys look at that school and all that's going on. I don't know if you can see it. It's kind of hard to tell. Meanwhile, Zach was shouting, "We have to finish the stories so the characters will go back into the book." But the storybook characters didn't want to go back, and a tug-of-war began. Oh, no. Miss Smith appeared in the doorway, and with one look, she let everyone know she meant business. Even the dragon was suddenly silent. Zach handed the book back to Miss Smith. She ruffled through the pages, adjusted her glasses, and started to read. The class sat spellbound as she finished each story in turn. And with a swirl and a whoosh, one character after another disappeared into the book until the classroom was quiet and tidy again. Principal Rittenrotten and a team of firefighters skidded to a halt at the door just as Miss Smith closed the book. "May I help you, Principal Rittenrotten?" asked Miss Smith. But the principal couldn't seem to answer. He just stared at the quiet class with his mouth wide open. Miss Smith flashed a secret smile at her class. Zach smiled right back. Who would ever have guessed that reading could be so much fun? Right, guys? Take a look behind that bookcase. Uh-oh. They might have a little trouble. All right, guys, I'm going to stop there. So, I'm going to wish you a good day. Adios, amigos. Remember, wash those hands, wear your mask, social distance. We're going to be good. Adios until next time.